In this video, we will cover using section boxes and scope boxes, applying color schemes, and creating plan regions. Let's begin by looking at section boxes. 3D views have section boxes. I'll open the 3D electrical view, and then in the Properties palette, I'll scroll down to the Extents section. Here you can see a section box parameter. When enabled, a 3D box will be created around the model and can be used to clip the model. When I enable section box, we can see that nothing really happens, and the reason is because the visibility of the section box category is turned off. And this is typical for a lot of project templates, especially the out-of-the-box Revit templates. I'll type VV to open the Visibility Graphic Overrides dialog, switch to the Annotation Categories tab, and then scroll down to Section Boxes. When I turn the category on and click OK, you can then see the section box surrounding the model. I'll select it, and then you can see controls on each edge of the section box. You can use these controls to move that edge of the section box. And when you do, you can clip certain portions of the model. And so this is a great way to take a look inside your model so you can get a better idea of certain areas of the building. When you are in a 3D view and you select elements or certain components, there is a tool called Selection Box, and this is in the contextual ribbon in the View panel. When you click Selection Box, the section box extents would be adjusted so that it surrounds the components that you selected. And so this is a great way to really narrow down that section box to a specific area. And so in this case, I'm looking at an electrical room. Now, this view just has the electrical components, but if you want to take a look at another view where other components are visible, such as the architectural model, you can open up that 3D view. Or if you are in a floor plan view and you select components, and then you click Selection Box, it will open the default 3D view. And so in this case, I have other components turned on here in the 3D view, and you can see that they are visible. Once again, the section box is turned off in this default 3D view, but if I turn it on, I can then select it, and we can make adjustments if I wanted to see, if I wanted to kind of expand that a bit to take a closer look. And so in this case, I'm now seeing some ductwork, and I can coordinate around those components. And if I needed to, I could turn on the architectural model if we wanted to coordinate against the architectural model as well. So just to summarize, there is a section box parameter which will enable the section box in a 3D view, and then the selection box tool can be used to control the section box so that it adjusts the extents to just be around certain selected components in the model. Now let's take a look at scope boxes. I will go back to the floor plan view and then switch to the View ribbon, and in the Create panel you can see there is a scope box tool. So there are a couple different uses for scope boxes, and typically on the MEP side they are used to create areas of the building. So if you have a large building that will not fit on a sheet at the desired scale, you can break it down into smaller areas, and you can use scope boxes to indicate those areas. So if I activate the scope box tool, I can then click 2 points to create a rectangle and create a scope box. And for example, I will name this one Area A, and then I'll create another one, and we'll call it Area B. And we'll create one more and call it Area C. Now if I switch back to the default 3D view and I disable section box and I zoom to extents, you can now see scope boxes. And when I select a scope box, it has the same controls on each edge, and I can use it to adjust the extents, whether it's the, for a floor plan, or I can adjust the height as well. And you can see that the scope boxes are not clipping the model, and so they have different functionality. And so let's take a look at that. So if I switch back to the floor plan view, in the project browser, I'm going to right click and select duplicate view, duplicate as a dependent, and we'll create a dependent view. And I'm going to rename it area A just for this example. And when I scroll down in the properties palette, I can see that there is a scope box parameter for this floor plan view. And if I assign it the scope box area A, then the crop region will adjust to match the scope box. And so once again, that's a great way to create smaller areas, and then you can use those scope boxes to control the crop regions so that you can have consistency in your model. The other thing that scope boxes can do is they can drive datum elements. They can control the extents of datum elements. So for example, if I switch to an elevation view and I select a level, you can see that it also has a scope box parameter. Now in this case, my scope boxes are for smaller areas of the building. You may want to create an overall scope box that you can use to control your levels and grids if you create grids in your MEP model. Okay, last thing on scope boxes, if I switch back to the default 3D view and select a scope box, you can see that there is a Views Visible parameter. And when I click Edit, it opens the Scope Box Views Visible dialog, and you can use this dialog to control the views where the scope box is visible in. And not just the scope box, but also the datum elements that are associated to that scope box. And so this is where you can control the floor plan views, 3D views, and even elevation views for your scope boxes and associated datum elements. Next, let's take a look at color schemes. And I will switch back to the floor plan view. And then on the Analyze ribbon in the Color Fill panel, I can click Color Fill Legend. And then I can click to place a legend. And I can apply a color fill legend to zones, rooms, or spaces. So if I select spaces, and then I just have one scheme in this model, so we'll click OK. And when I do, you can then see in the Properties palette that the color scheme is Schema 1. And when I click that button to open the Edit Color Scheme dialog, I can see that this color scheme is applied to spaces, and the colors are based off of the name parameter. So if I wanted to, we could switch that to average estimated illumination, and then we could apply a color scheme based off of the average estimated illumination parameter. And so you can see several colors here. I can also do that instead of by value, I can change it to by range, and then we can look at a range of the average estimated illumination parameter. And these can be modified as needed. So in this case, I just have 2. So if it's less than 20-foot candles or more than 20-foot candles, and I can visually see where those spaces are at. Last thing is a plan region. And so if you have a certain room, such as a lobby, that the view range is going to be different, you can use a plan region. So if you switch to the View ribbon and then in the Create panel, expand Plan Views and select Plan Region, you can use the tools in the Draw Gallery to sketch a plan region. And then once you have a plan region, you can control the view range for that plan region independent of the overall view range for the view.